Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is when you happen to watch this YouTube. Alright, I'm going to continue reading on from my book, How to Get Out of Babylon. I originally titled it Wings of an Eagle. No, Eagle's Wings. That's why it says Eagle's Wings here. If you read it on a lot of online versions, then I changed it to Wings of an Eagle. One friend said, that's what we need, is we together, working together. So, I'm going to start again here in chapter 3. So, Diamond's Log Arctic 2015-1-20. Section 3, Eagle's Wings, some background. So this plan that the Lord gave me is a very far-reaching plan. And all we're going to get down here is a beginning, an outline, I guess, and I need to get into that. In order to do that, I just wanted to touch on the passage in Revelation chapter 12. It speaks of the woman who is given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness. The dragon was wroth that she had escaped, and so he spewed out a flood of water, and the earth helped the woman and opened up and swallowed the flood. And so that was something that for several years, actually when we moved out from Denver in 1997, my prayer was to go out into the wilderness. That didn't really happen. We ended up in a small town of 200 in Kansas, which compared to Denver and the Front Range population base of 2 million people is certainly wilderness. But we knew fairly soon that it was not where we wanted to be and that we would be moving. So coming into 97, I felt that this would be a time to move. A cycle of 4 years in Denver of teaching and educating and waking people up, getting ready to move, and then we moved. And we've been here, at the time I wrote this, in Kansas 4 years, teaching and educating and helping people and holding meetings and training and providing people with stuff, and I felt it was time to move. And as the case is turning out, it is, and that is happening very suddenly, like the 11th hour. So my prayer was to go out into the wilderness. That's where my heart is to be, out into the woods, in the wilderness, and to live close to the earth. The Lord put that desire there. For many of us, it's in our blood. If you would rather live out in the country than in the city, it's in your blood. It's a Celtic or ancestral thing with the Israelite people. Country versus city. We need to be out in the country where we can be survivors, and not in the cities where we are merely survivalists. In the cities, many people who consider themselves survivalists may have tons and tons of goods. I believe that a lot of them will have to leave those supplies behind, and they will be scavenged or salvaged or stolen by other people. But a lot of those people eventually, and I'm looking at a 3-year time period here, boy, fooled me, that at the end of that time period, people will be on foot with the shirt on their back, and that's all. It's sad but true, and it's always happened. We'll just be seeing history repeat itself. Think about the history cycle of Beirut. When you think about it, when you and I think about it, it's a bombed-out city, a war-torn city, and has been for many years. Was it always that way? Beirut was once called the Paris of the Middle East. Now, Sarajevo, site of the 1980 Winter Olympics, was once a beautiful city. Now it's a bombed-out and war-torn town also. It used to be called the Beirut of the Balkans because it was so picturesque. Beirut was a Paris of the Middle East. Sarajevo was a Beirut of the Balkans. Now both cities are full of craters, shelled buildings, and human misery. There has been incredible destruction of medical and educational facilities and historical monuments. The point here is that throughout man's history, war comes, civilization breaks down, and people are refugees. They are pushing carts, they're pulling wagons, with bird cages hanging off the side of the cart. You know they are taking whatever they perceive of value, and they are going out into the country to try to find sustenance, to try to find food. There is no food in the cities. None. The trigger effect. When war hits, bad things happen. When food supplies are interrupted in this country, people will very, very quickly become violent. There's a movie called The Trigger Effect. The question in the movie was how soon after the power goes out in a city will people become violent? How long will it take? How long will it be before they begin preying on one another through theft and burglary, even to the point of committing murder? The conclusion of the movie is not very long. There is going to be a breakdown in this country. It may be precipitated by the economic collapse. It may be any number of catalysts: drought, disease, invasion, or internal strife. Most likely it will involve a combination of many factors, and sequentially. We are seeing several at work already. We have the threat of terrorism doing incredible damage to the airlines, as well as the economy in general. What is happening is the judgment of God. It would be well to prepare ourselves ahead of time. What kind of home should we live in? So the idea that the woman fled into the wilderness and the dragon poured out a flood and the earth absorbed or swallowed that flood. So what I'm leading up to here is a concept, a way of life, a building of homes that will swallow or absorb the cold, that will swallow or absorb heat, that will swallow or absorb radiation. Well, what is your best defense against radiation? The answer is, quote, 3 feet of dirt, end quote. Gary North wrote a book, and the title was With Enough Shovels, which gives the answer. So if we were to live in earth-sheltered or underground homes, we would be able to live more comfortably year-round. $0 paid out for cooling in the summer, and virtually no money paid out in the winter for heating. We have lived in a cob house as well as an earth-sheltered home. In both, we did not fire up our wood stove until months after other people had their furnaces on. When we did, the wood provided free heat. Thus we've been dealing with designing free, cheap, easy ways to build these homes and the heating systems. So this is the area where the plan begins and revolves around: mortgage-free housing. Eliminate completely the death pledge, mortgage. Eliminate completely any expense in the area of cooling. Virtually eliminate heating costs. So I'm going to go into that at this point. Footnote, the word mortgage from the French is like mortuary, mortician, mortal combat, mortal sin, death. And then the word gauge is from the word pledge, and it's like a death pledge. It's a bet with the banking industry that you probably won't pay it up before you die. That's the way I see it, and that's the truth of it. Most people do not pay off their houses before they pass on. A lot of people don't because of the interest rate. Timing is everything. One statement that I have kept in mind for about 30 years is that it is better, quote, it is better to be a year too early than a day too late. The core of the idea of the plan, which I'll call eagle's wings, because there are believers in the cities and they need 2 wings of a great eagle to help them get out into the country, began with a short dream or vision. I want to say that I am putting this on tape and then putting this in print and putting it out on the internet, encouraging people to take part in it and to be a part of it. By doing this, we are speaking this plan into existence. It's going to happen. It has to happen. It will happen. To what extent it's going to happen, I can't say. I feel driven and pushed to get this done as soon as possible because we do not have any minutes, hours, weeks, months, and definitely not any years to spare. At the very, very, very outside, I believe we've got 3 years to see all this come to pass, and the door is going to be shut. A friend of mine was given a poem back in early December of 1998, and it says in part, and I've rewritten it and taken on a little bit of poetic liberty here, 2001 has just begun. 2002, they break the golden rule. 2003, we are not free. 2004, God shuts the door. 2005, who's left alive? 2006, pick up the sticks. 2007, God's glorious heaven. I think that's about as accurate a time sequence as I can imagine. So 2004, God shuts the door. My sense is we better plan on being done by 2003. Even at that time, going into that time period, people are going to be refugees. I have had, call it a vision, just a sight, a picture, burned into my mind for 20 years of a tent city. That was about 1980, so footnote, that was about 1980, so that's been now 35 years, 1981, 34 years ago, end of footnote. So it was put onto my heart. Back then I thought, well, I'm crazy, but I was driven to buy tents and sleeping bags and blankets and sweaters and boots and gear to provide for those people that I saw in that vision. So now, here, 20 years later, we're going out into a community out in a wilderness. And at some point of time, I do believe that we're going to have that tent city. It's going to happen. There will be many, many refugees. My dream vision. This is how this plan began for me. I had visited my wife down in Missouri. She was down there waiting for a friend to have a baby, and I visited her. Early in the morning, I was sitting up in bed about 3 a.m. I was awake. I wasn't sleeping, so it wasn't a dream. But I had this picture in my mind, but a moving one. It wasn't a still thing. I'm facing toward this home. It's an earth-bermed home. All I could see was the front of it. The rest of it was just hill or into the earth. A young family comes walking through the woods toward me, to the right of the home. I'm facing the front of the home, so they are coming up on my left. They come around, and they don't see anything, or me, and I'm watching. They curl around and see the home, and the door's there, and it's a wooden door with a welcome mat out front, and it's their home. There is bedding in there, a stove with wood in it ready to light up. Some utensils are in the kitchen and some food, and it just broke me up. I cried for about an hour. My wife kept asking what's wrong. She thought something was physically wrong, and for a long time it just tore me up inside. I could not talk. To see that something that beautiful could happen, that this young refugee family, on foot, is coming into this area with no food, 2 small children, nowhere to go. They're homeless, and for a home to be waiting for them, it just spoke volumes to me about the capability that we do have to see that happen for a large number of people. End of that chapter. Time, 12 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add this on here. This is many years later. Let me read this one section here. I wrote this. This is from a letter that I wrote to a gal, and it's about another woman. Electricians, communications people, good men and women from every walk of life are gathering here to the Ozark Plateau. Never fear, there is a plan, and we will all love it, quote unquote, love it when a plan comes together, end of quote. On the other hand, I may also share a bit someday about my book that you read. You might want to reread it because it's coming true. Get this, the only person at the time I wrote this who read it and did it, i.e. got out of Babylon, was a woman who epitomizes the downtrodden, the weak, the oppressed, the assaulted, the widow, the orphan, the yalad, which is Hebrew is the word for midwife, begetter, birther, the midwife, that is the ward upon woman in the Revelation 12 passage. She is the first and only one up to that point in time. Okay, we had decided the only way to stop the assaults on her life, at least buy her a little bit of time for healing, was to build her a cob house. Next, I thought of building enough shelter so her children will come home to her. While helping her move 6 times in a year and another forced move coming up in a week, she looked up at me and said this: "That young couple in your vision is my daughter, her husband, and her 2 children." To be continued. And I'll read the poem that I actually was led to write a poem about that situation. That person, her life was so horrific, and so she had been burned and beaten and homeless. I mean, at the age of 5, thrown out of the house and wandered and ate out of garbage cans, and at one point her feet were frozen at a shelter in Kansas City, and just so I'll just say it's rare that I'm moved to write poetry, and there has to be emotion involved. But this story did that for me. It's about this woman's life and why I'm frustrated with complacency, apathy, ignorance, and sense the, quote, woe to those that are at ease in Zion, end quote, and why I'm sickened at, quote unquote, Christians who are so hateful toward people who have suffered so much yet exhibit volumes more of the blessed nature of their Savior. So, this is Jerry Diamond. If you're listening to this, you are the remnant. Goodbye.